welcome to milestone 1 of the new dev cycle for summer 2017. We're going to begin with Calclord. Donald, take it away.
Hello everybody, I'm Donald Shepis. I am the team lead for Calculord. So this has been an interesting period for us. We, as many startup projects, are living in this weird phase of having to do production to get a prototype out there to show to investors, to garner funding, while trying to do all the pre-production work that we wish we had time to start earlier. That being said, we have reached $180,000 in funding for our first round, which has now been completed. So we're pretty happy with that. We're looking to move into a second round of funding relatively soon with some new investors. So one of the big things that's been a change for us is getting out of the mentality of we're building a prototype and trying to make all of our production flow into something that we're going to be using and sustaining all throughout our production. And to that end, we've swapped to using a Git flow production flow, lots of flows, which basically means we've got our master branch, which is our actively being used to throw out our releases. We've got hot fixes under that for when we've got game-breaking bugs that we need to immediately launch. We have our develop branches, which is the combination of all our feature branches. When we start a feature, we branch out, then when we complete it, it goes back into develop, and then when we start thinking about having a new release, we pull that into our release branch. And because we're using GitKraken, all you have to do is hit yes, use git flow, and there's a little box and it says start new feature, start new release, start new hotfix. It makes the entire process very easy. We don't even have to think about which branch should I be pushing and pulling to. And with that, because we're also moving into developing our teacher console, we ran into an interesting problem of we've got our client-side console and we've got our admin-side console, and both of them are using content that's shared. Now we can either go through the laborious process of trying to make sure that we sync up all the art assets and the scripts and the prefabs that we have shared across both of those consoles, or we just use a submodule, which is a function in Git that allows you to have essentially a third repo that contains all of your resource files, all of your art asset files, and when that's updated, all you have to do is pull from that into either client or admin side project, and it syncs everything up there. And it prevents us from having the issue of, oh, we've developed the client side with these 4 or 5 prefabs, and those prefabs aren't the same on the teacher side, and then we spend 3 weeks trying to figure out why the content isn't being pulled across and shared. We've also stepped back and looked at our UI, and we had an initial iteration that we were quite proud of for the prototype, but that was based on the initial prototype that our client made on a web version of the application. And so we wanted to look at what things are we assuming, what things are we taking for granted that are just how the game should function. And we had a bunch of new fresh eyes on the project this semester, and so we said, hey, I want you guys to go ahead and, without really worrying about the UI that we have, build up a new one. And so we got a bunch of different iterations. For instance, this one kind of changed how we're looking at the map. Before we were looking at it as single points, and thus running into the issue of if we've got a structure that doesn't require you to perform these actions in a linear path, how do we display that and have it on the map? And instead having it as a zone-based system. And so we've been looking at all those iterations. We're picking pieces apart, showing them to our client, and figuring out how we can kind of have an overall vision that uses the best elements of each. And to which we also have some functionality testing that our programmers have been working up. One of the things that we've been running into for a kind of consistent issue is we have our game screens, we've got our avatar, we've got the town that you're in, and that's what the players are building up, but they don't really see that in a whole lot of interactions. And so with this, we're merging our game space and our UI space. So now you've got your camera, which shows you whatever region of the town that the UI would be mimicking, so the shop or your inventory or whatever. And so now we're mixing, it shows you the elements, and we're throwing a UI over that. So for instance, when you've got your character, the character is there, the actual model, as you would be walking around with them or as they'd be walking around the town, and then we just throw the UI around it. And so now we're having this mix of our game space and our UI space to create this kind of greater cohesion between the two types. We've also been working on the overall aesthetic. We've had a lot of meetings with our client trying to figure out exactly how he wants the end result UI to look. And we've come up with, it's basically a mix of kind of a tomb with cleaner lines, something that's not super dilapidated or worn out, lots of pop marks and scoring and things like that. And so we've been working through developing materials, developing assets to kind of make sure that we have enough that he understands what he's looking at and what the idea of the final product will look like, so that way we can spend less time iterating on the art. We've also had some of our concept artists working on main elements for the game spaces you'll be interacting with. For instance, this is the concept of a far view of the main town, which will be then building up that environment to allow our camera to go through and show you different elements. I forgot to get a screenshot of the new base that's being worked on, but something we only had last semester was we just had a male base. Now we're working on both creating them at a higher poly resolution, so the heads are detached, so that way we can have them at a higher poly while the bodies are able to be swapped out. And that solves a lot of issues for us in the future when we do things like introduce new races and have different modifications for heads and things like that. And alongside of that, we've been somewhat good about keeping up our documentation. We've got a new style guide. For any time you're working with a client, having a bunch of guides on the things that you agreed, this is how we want that style to look, is great, because when they say, oh, I don't like, X and Y about this thing, you can say, well, that's part of the style guide, that's what we agreed upon, we're not going to go back and change that right now because we need to move forward. That way you avoid that deadlock of too much back and forth trying to get exactly what they have in their head. We've also been doing some work on the marketing side now that we're essentially going to be pushing more of a public presence. Now we've got some of our funding. We've got screenshot banners. That way whenever we throw up anything online, there's always something on there that tells you where to go and what it's from. As well as we're starting to get a little bit more of the bureaucracy with things like marketing request forms, so that way when our marketing artists are building up our flyers and whatnot, they have all the information they need. We've also been, something that we did in Happy Skies that we're bringing onto Calculord, is these little media cards. So basically in that white spot there's going to be a QR code that goes there, and every time we go out to a play test, every time we show it at a convention, wherever, we'll be able to hand out these cards. There'll be a little QR code, and they'll take the user to a survey, so that way they can say what they liked, what they didn't like, and where they heard about us. And that gives us a lot of useful metrics for how we should iterate our game, as well as where we're getting the most interaction with any user base. Oh yeah, that is it. So we're focusing on essentially stepping back and doing a lot of the pre-production we wish we had the time to in the beginning. So for our in production build, there's not been a whole lot of work, just because we're working on prototypes and things like that to try and essentially iterate more now, so we have to redo less work later. And that's been the progress for Calculord for week 1. Thank you.
So yeah, I'm team lead for Morpheus, and the last 2 weeks have been really exciting. We have tons of new designers, and they're all fantastic people, and they're working on their own little areas. We're going to show off a couple of those, and yeah, let's get right into it. So our first area is made by Ashley Bangs. This is Dusty Dunes, and we are focusing on Magball and the cockatrice in this area, and she did a wonderful job level designing it. She went through several iterations to get to that paper map right there. And then she went into Unity and white boxed it out for us. So now the artists will go in and start swapping these out with nicer looking assets. And here are a couple of the pictures. I kind of was afraid these were too dark. This shows off how the environment changes in this zone. So there's 2 ways to solve this area, and depending on which one you choose, it will further separate the world or it will bring it back together, which is something we're playing around with in Morpheus. Here are some of the mechanics she laid out. She made some sketches of it so that we can, communicate that to the artists and the programmers. We will be adding a hover ability to the cockatrice, so he can kind of glide. And also on the other side of there, you can see there's this grappling ability. We do have that in, which is right here. And so we're going to be using that in the following weeks to build out that level. Oops. Okay. Also, we were working on Glacier Gorge. These are some paper maps made by John. The very innovative thing about them is they're actually GIFs. So this is the first time I've ever seen an animated paper map. These are really great to have because now the programmers don't have to question things. They can just read the documents and then look at the picture and be like, okay, I get it. And so I worked on some of the crystals, as well as we have Talon, we have a couple others. There's so many people on the team. Fred's working on some of them. So we have power crystals, which are similar to the orbs. They bring things together. We have the fire ones, which you shoot an arrow through them. They light things on fire. We don't have a green one, but I'm guessing that's the gravity, which is also the purple one over there. Those are our placeholders. Those are cool. They hold material around them that orbit, and then if you shoot them, they turn off and kind of bring it together. And then if there's another one nearby, it will actually cycle the orbits around them. So it does like almost a figure 8 thing. And we can use this to kind of transition that little island right there with the pedestal on it around the level, and the player has to get that to the other side. So we're playing around with that concept in Glacier Gorge. The big blue ones are bridge crystals. So if you saw on this map here, there's actually those where the hero is right there. There's an ice bridge that spawns. So those connect. On Harlan, he's been sketching some stuff for Tribal Cat, which is our new form. We didn't have a form that was able to climb or scale walls. This guy's interesting. He kind of is composed of ink, and he leaves footprints behind. We're just playing with the concept right now, but later on he'll be able to scale walls and possibly ceilings too. We're prototyping that currently. Yeah, also we got controller support in, so today when I show the build, I will be playing with a controller. We got that in 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty easy. We had a couple issues with the abilities that we had to iron out, but mostly it was pretty good. All right, where'd you put it, Todd? Okay. So I'm not sure if I showed this build off before. It's a lot of the stuff from last semester. But yeah, you can see everything's working nicely. And I just spawned in the sky. That's not right, but that's okay. So this is one of the areas that we showed off last semester. Camera support is working great with the controller. His arms are messed up in this build because we're actually playing with the skeleton here. And his arms are lining up with the bow. And we are playing with IK, so if oh, it's not in this scene. Okay. He's supposed to look up and down at the reticle, but that's not working. So yeah, we're working on getting a third-person view instead of this awful first-person view. Oh, oops, I just fell off. But I'll be able to show off some of the cool stuff here if I can play. I play on the PC all the time, so this is quite weird for me. I don't remember the button for this on controller. I got it. So yeah, you can see that column flew past me. That's actually repairing that post. You guys probably have seen that in a past video. So just like the desert pictures I was showing you, this bridge is similar in the way how it repairs. And this is something we want to do throughout the game. I'm going to see if I can figure out this button. Oops. Okay, there we go. So yeah, you saw the bridge came together. But there's a bug. So we will be doing bug fixing in the following weeks. We started making playability checks that like forms that you can fill out. So you print them out and they have check boxes. You go through each scene and you just check each one. And then we send that off to like an error report thing where the programmers can go in and fix them. And this is also another area that we worked on last semester. But yeah, the controller is just... This is a bad controller. The bindery needs to replace their controllers. It's the stick. It's like, yeah. So yeah, next sprint we will be showing off Glacier Gorge. We are almost finished with that. The gravity crystals are really cool. We're going to get those bridge crystals in as well, and then yeah, we'll have a really cool playable level. I could escape in there. Oh, there.
Alright. Our game is World of Marks, as you know. I wanted to start out with showing what we have accomplished so far. For those of you who haven't seen the past build, we have, as you know, it's a fighting game, so we're trying to get our combat animations in. We have our UI system down pretty well. We still have some tweaks with that, but we're still working on it. We have our stamina system working good. We have our magic, health, all that other stuff is working pretty smoothly. We still have a couple bug fixes that we need to work on with that, but that's going to come in later iterations. And we have actually updated our ability system as well, thanks to Bo and Kefni, which I'll show off later in the presentation. So we have the key system working, but we have more abilities to show off, and we can actually see what's going on. Okay. If this mouse would work. Alright. So, thanks to Trey, we have more mini bosses for our spawns, which we hope to implement by the next sprint. So whenever the day to night cycle completes, an enemy and a mini boss will spawn so the players can fight them along with the player that they're trying to attack at the same time. Brenda was able to complete some roughs for Torky Ragged, our last playable character. So she is going to be starting to model that soon, and we hope to get a playable model in for testing in the next iteration as well. And this is what she has so far, which is good for a box model. Johnny, one of our programmers, has did a good job on our day to night cycle, implementing it and updating it, so it actually does spawn. Right now he has a block that spawns with the day to night cycle, so once we get our other characters in, we'll be able to actually spawn enemies and characters during the day to night cycle, which will then attack the characters whenever they're near. So thanks to him for updating our system for us. That actually works out pretty well when we implement it. This is Bo and Kefni's work. They have we have our icon system working now. So with each character, we have 4 playable characters altogether. Each character has their own little icon and their own abilities that they can use. So once we implement all these abilities, we'll be able to show off their fighting techniques as well as their abilities to integrate more combos into the game. We still have a lot more fixes to work on. So our next iteration, Bo and Kefni are still going to update this ability system to completion pretty much. That way there's no bugs. We have a cooldown working, we have the icon system working, but the abilities themselves still need to be tweaked out. Like the lock-on system, things of that nature needs to be worked on still. So Bo and Kefni did a really good job bringing those abilities to life and implementing all of them for all 4 characters. The video is kind of long, so I won't show all of it, but it's it'll be on our Twitter and Facebook page if you want to check it out more. Oh yeah, 1 second. And now I will show you what we have for our builds so far. Thought I did all this. Sorry. No, I've cause the fire drill happened when it was downloading, so I forgot to extract it when I came back. Yeah, it's a fire drill. Well, for some reason it won't run Unreal 4. Huh? Oh. Okay. Alright, so this is our castle build that we're going to be working on and Matt's helping me with. So far, it's white boxed, as you can see, but we have a nice little area for the fighting to take place. A lot of the implementation is going to come from asset placement and things of that nature. We're going to implement the day to night cycle isn't going to be on this level, but the spawning and enemy system will be. and we have a lot of our asset list that we're going to be working on to fill the level out a little bit more. And the main area in this level will be the throne room, which is behind these doors, which we are working on right now. Matt's going to be helping us with that as a contractor. And as for that, this is our progress that we have for that so far. This is our throne room right here. You can't really get a good look at it, but as the throne room is supposed to be big to allow a lot of big battles to happen inside of it. So players will have the choice to either fight anywhere in the castle, but the throne room is probably going to be the main area for the carnage to happen, pretty much. We have a couple assets. We have the windows, the stairs, the pillars, and we're going to be working on a lot more, like the throne room, different event ticks, and spawns, all kinds of other stuff. So what's next? We are going to be working on our lock-on system, so players can lock on to certain enemies, switch to those enemies, or use your abilities to actually focus on one specific area. As I said before, we have our character concepts done, so we're going to be beginning on the modeling phases, and we're going to start on our animation selecting so we can get our combat nice and fast-paced, kind of like Devil May Cry, things like that. And we're going to work on our spawning system, as I said, so we can have our mobs just compete with the characters as they fight other people. And we're going to be updating our forest level as well, so we can have a playable level by the next iteration. And that's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bart Driscoll, project lead for Reign and Rebellion. So, with this first sprint, most of our focus was getting the new people on our team integrated, especially with our new online people. And most of the new people we got on are artists, so we focused heavy on getting those people started and what they needed to work on. But first of all, for our design this semester, we wanted to more focus on the story of the world, and that includes the characters, the teams, the maps that the players will be playing on, and a bit more backstory to the world. We also focus on some pre-production for our new maps this semester, as well as some research into reward systems. So first off, for our characters this semester, we're focusing on getting all 6 of our characters done, and to start off, we've been concepting 2 of our characters, well, more of our characters, but these are the 2 best ones we have right now, most complete, as well as focusing on making models for the characters, as well as some UI for both teams. And on the maps going for this semester, we're focusing on making 4 new maps, 2 for each team. Those maps would be the airship, a factory, a temple, and a cavern. And here's some assets from all those. And for the programming side so far, we've been working on cleaning up some of our past code as well as making our abilities better. We've been working on implementing a debug mode as well as a free camera mode. Working on a sound script to hopefully implement some sound and music this semester. Let's get to the build. So like I said, we're trying to implement a debug mode to help give our programmers a little bit more information when problems are happening in game. So far, we don't have too much of that implemented. All we have implemented right now is the free camera. And we are still using our old map from last semester, and that will be primarily used as a test map going further. Shift 12, and then put into a sort of free camera mode. And with this, hopefully, we'll be able to detect more problems, as well as get better looks at parts of our levels for future builds. And that is what we have this sprint.
Red Rhino.
Hello, I'm Alex. I am the project lead for Operation Red Rhino. I'm just going to be going over what we did in Sprint 1. So we're a new team, so we had to get through the whole team orientation, assign everybody their roles on the team, get the repository set up, and get everybody hands-on with the project, get everybody familiar with what we're doing and what their role on the team is going to be moving forward. We also had to task out our subcontractors, which has kind of been an ongoing thing throughout this sprint. We've just been kind of bringing on subcontractors, coming up with work for them to do. Our online student, Doug, he's our UI programmer. He worked on the front end menu. Charles worked on the stamina system. And Dom and Valentine have been working on defining our first game mode. And Isaac's been working on getting our first 3 classes defined. So here's a look at our subcontractor work. That's going to be our first assault rifle, the G3. And then down in the corner there, that is going to be an M60 Patton. It's a tank that we used at the time. So those are making some pretty good progress. This is a look at our front end menu. We got the art in, everything's good, and that's actually a 3D scene. So when I bring it up later, that looks pretty nice. Not on this computer, but it looks nice if we go out in the commons and look at it. So our stamina system, we wanted to do something a little bit different than most first-person shooters. Most shooters, you sprint, you either never run out of sprint or you run out of sprint for a couple seconds and then you can sprint again. But it's kind of like a constant movement and you're never really penalized for just kind of making a beeline. So what we wanted to do is your sprint will deplete just like normal. Once you hit 0, you can't sprint anymore. If you keep just running forward, your sprint will actually never kick in to regen. You'll have to either stand still, crouch, or be crouch walking so that your character has a chance to kind of catch his breath, regen that stamina so that you can sprint again. What we're aiming to do with that is kind of promote bounding between cover and open areas so you're not just sprinting from your spawn to the objective and vice versa. And when we get the encumbrance system working next sprint, that's actually going to affect how our stamina burns, how your stamina regens, depending on how much equipment you're taking in, what kind of equipment, what class you are. And all those are going to be part of our integrated attributes for the character. The class, the encumbrance, the health, the stamina, all that stuff is going to affect each other in unique ways. So for our first game mode, we decided to kind of try and fill in that movement node over on the side. The movement nodes there's 2 of them on the map. They're right next to the middle node that you'll start in, and they're a little bit different. They will be a neutral game mode, so there will be one centralized objective that both teams are fighting over, and if you win that round, you'll actually knock that node out for the other team to use. So it's kind of just a strategy to kind of eliminate routes across the map that the enemy team could make. So for our first one, we decided to do a neutral bomb mode. 1 bomb in the center, both teams vying for that bomb. Your goal is to grab that bomb, take it to the enemy's bridge, and blow that bridge up neutralizing that route for them. And we're actually going to introduce not necessarily a respawn system, but sort of. It's kind of a kill to respawn system. So dead players, when you're dead, but you enter a respawn queue for your team. If somebody else on your team gets a kill, you will actually respawn. So you're not gonna respawn just if your team just sits around and does nothing. You're not gonna get any reinforcements. Your team has to keep pushing forward to get you that respawn. Because of this, our movement node before was just this very asymmetrical. One team spawned in this top node right here. One team spawned in the bottom hump there, and that top team was just supposed to defend the village, and the other team was just supposed to attack the village. It wasn't a neutral game mode. It was very asymmetrical. So what we had to do is we had to build out this level and add in a second bridge for this A team to be able to plant at. So this is what we're looking at right now. So we built out. It ended up being another probably 2 or 3 weeks worth of building out this level to facilitate our new game mode. And I'll show that level off a little bit later and some of the stuff that we added to that part of the map. For our classes, the first 3 that we're going to go with are our leader class, our rifleman class, and our medic. Isaac's been working on not only defining what those attributes are going to be for those classes and why they're necessary to a functioning team, but also he had to look at and research period-specific weapons, period-specific equipment that these guys will be carrying, and balance that out against each other. You don't want to give the rebel forces leader a single-shot weapon where you're giving the leader for the U.S. side a fully automatic weapon. So he had to balance that out, and he actually. I told him just to give everybody the same pistol, but he actually went and researched a ton of secondary weapons also. So we got a lot to, and this is just the document that will fit on the screen. He has like a 4 or 5 page Word document where he broke all these down into their rate of fire, their weight, what their effective range is, what kind of caliber ammunition they're using. So we have all that so that when we start building out our inventory system, all that stuff is already laid out for us and we can just start plugging that into the engine. So I guess I'll show the build before I go from what we're going to do now. So from here, we really only have a host game option. There's no online. So we'll just pop in here. Go to our new map. This weapon right here is actually just the placeholder rifle. So that one that you saw early in the presentation, we're hoping to get that in for Sprint 2. But really, the only thing I'm going to show off is down here in the bottom corner, you'll see it says S, and then it has 100 next to it right now. That's what we're using to display our stamina system right now. This next sprint, Doug is going to get into the in-game UI, and we're going to start getting bars for that instead of just a boring number down there. But you'll see it'll tick down if I'm sprinting forward. And if I just keep running forward, it's never going to tick back up. So I can use that to kind of I can use that as I go. So if I don't need to sprint through here, but then I need to sprint past a sniper here, maybe I'll start using that again. And then if I have a chance to catch my breath here, stand still. I can crouch, I can stand still, let that tick back up, and then I have my stamina back. So we'll be balancing that. Different classes will have a different, not only starting stamina, but a different stamina burn, a different stamina regen. So that's the first of our integrated attributes that we're going to be getting in the rest of this semester. So looking forward, our encumbrance system, that's the next thing that Charles is going to be working on for Sprint 2. First 3 classes got in the engine so that we have those set up, and so that when people join the game, they have those 3 classes to choose from and don't have to go through the weird build a class system that's in there now. The neutral bomb game mode in, and that map fully working, so all blocked off, all ready for playtesting and everything. In-game UI, so that ugly HUD can go and we can get some new new functioning stuff that better shows off our actual features and aren't just ugly numbers at the bottom. And then the initial framework for the node selection and loading, that's something that we haven't, we had a chance to kind of talk about it and get the base design down, but we haven't had a chance to get it working in Engine. So for Sprint 2, that's a big thing that we want to get working. Maybe not for the 2 nodes that we have done, but I want to be able to switch and load through a couple different levels just so we know moving forward how we need to build our levels and what poly count we're looking at for our scenes. And that is what we have for Sprint 1.
Okay, let's see. No. This is us. And make sure this is working. This should be working. Really? Sorry guys, give me just a moment. I see, thank you. Alright. Cool, we'll come back to that. Alright. Good morning guys, my name is Austin Harrington. I'm the creator of Call Center Simulator 2018. Our first sprint has been very interesting. The 2017 prototype that you guys have seen before was really good for what it was, but we wanted to write the game from the ground up. And so this is essentially a new project. We've been starting production right alongside doing a lot of pre-production work. So let's get into it. Our designers have been working on documentation so that we all understand what we're doing for our movement system. Again, it's never been done before, so we've been concepting that out. We've been building paper maps, playing with some of those mechanics. So you can see on the far right, we have just kind of a basic model where the player start is, spaces you can move to, the red arrows represent animations. So the character model will move from space to space before the player's camera actually moves there. Again, it's a VR game, so it's pretty simple, but we had to make sure everyone was on track with that. So we've got 5 play spaces that are being concepted right now. We'll be getting into white boxing soon. Our artists have been hard at work. We've only got 2 guys on the team right now that we've got work from, so we're really impressed so far. We have got a concept for our first Nerf gun that looks great, and we've got a bunch of other assets in process right now, as well as these that are coming along. Our programmers have been the most active in the actual build. So first issue we ran into is we have 1 HTC Vive we can develop for, and we need 2 to test multiplayer. So we had to port to Oculus, which was difficult, but we've actually solved problems that guys in the industry are having problems with doing that. So that's great. Beyond that, we started working on our emotive system for the game. We wanted to have one of the most expressive social multiplayer games ever made. So we'll see in the build in a minute, we have near one-to-one functionality for tracking of elbows, shoulders, wrists, which we don't have sensors for. So we're having to find creative ways of displaying motion so that it looks natural to what the actual player is doing. And we will see that in a moment. Let me check on, make sure this is working. Hey Mason, you there? I don't know if you can hear me. Tyler, call them. They should be watching the stream. I don't know if they can hear it though. Okay.
Says they're watching.
All right, we got a wave. We got a wave. Can you demonstrate our motion, Mason?
Hello?
They should be
Can
watching.
you hear us?
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello?
I don't know if they can hear us. There is a lag. All right, we got a wave. We got a wave. Can you demonstrate our motion?
Can you hear us?
Double delay. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Hello, we can hear you. And there we go. There is a lag.
There is a lag.
All right, we got a wave. We got a wave. Demonstrate our motion.
Can you hear us?
Just told them to do a thing.
Turn the TV down. Turn the TV down.
Okay. Do a thing.
Alright. So what am I supposed to be doing? Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of walk you through this. So as you can see, in terms of the way his elbows, his shoulders, his wrists are moving with the controllers, we've got nearly accurate motion. This is really cool to me. To have this in a multiplayer space, I haven't seen anything that's this good, this close, and we're 3 weeks into this project right now. We've still got a lot of work to do. We're using an IK system that we're still putting together, but we're hoping to use, yes, you can dab in this game. We are hoping to get knees integrated to get as much motion as possible for the players, so we can do a lot of very interesting things. We were actually working on getting gun functionality into the build. It broke last night, so we don't quite have that in. We'll have it in for the next sprint. But you guys can kind of see where this is going. We're really excited about what's happening so far. And this is running on the Oculus Rift right now, which previously an HTC game that was difficult on its own. Moving on, next sprint. So I said the designers are working on whiteboxing out levels. We want to make sure that we've got a good idea of how movement's going to work in those levels, so the white boxes should be interesting, but we're starting that today. We're working on a bunch of assets. We've actually got some artists that aren't in the class, but are on different teams that are working for us as well. So we've been networking with them, making sure they have assets to work on. We're working on the human programming and IK movement that we just showed you, getting the gun implemented. We've already started working on our network functionality. One of the biggest goals that we have right now is getting multiplayer with full range of motion in our IK system working from HTC to Oculus and back. And that's basically just to prove that our concept works in a multiplayer space because we haven't seen it before. And again, we've got 2 programmers working on interactivity scripts, and Tyler and I have been working on social media content. We're trying to do video outreach and that kind of thing, just to drum up some buzz. With VR, there are so many blogs that are looking for content and that kind of thing that we're trying to do that. Anyway, the next sprint's going to be really exciting. We're making great progress, and we can't wait to show you what we've got in a couple more weeks. Thank you.
Wow, another round of applause for everybody. This is exciting. All right, 1 o'clock meetings. Leads, be prepared to tell me what your priorities are for the next sprint is. Have your builds to back up. If you are not in the leads meeting, make sure that you're attending one of those other discipline meetings. We have Hugh Henry here for the programmers. I don't know if Derek is coming today. I think he's still out at the con. Okay. Designers, you're on your own. Make sure that you're governing yourselves. Artists, Brandon there's Brandon. Meet him in 106 so that you can be assured of having the support that you need. These are mandatory until further notice, just to make sure everybody is adequately supported. So please go make games. See you at 1. Yeah.